Let's talk about from struggle to kicking ass, making money your hero's journey. For those of you guys that I don't know, my name is Crystal Crawford, and I'm the host of The Crystal Crawford Show. You know, if anybody else ever starts to host this show, I think that's going to be an interesting day. Maybe we have guest hosts, but I digress. I am so excited to talk to you about this. One of the things that continues to show itself to me throughout the 10 years that I've been working with Access Consciousness tools, changing my life, creating a business, is that this is not an overnight game. And what I mean by this is the creation of your life, the creation of money, the creation of everything that has to do with living for you. And as I was looking at money, because what a topic. I mean, what about money? You know, hi guys too, but if you're watching live, I'd love to hear from you. I love hearing from you, by the way. So say hi, tell me something, show me something naked. You know, as we look at money and this huge thing, my gosh, where do we even start to look at it from, right? Like if you go to my YouTube channel, you can find a whole playlist on it. There's lots of tools. I've got lots of reels on it. I'm doing lots of posting about money. I've got a new 21-day money program starting that I think is one of the best things that I've created so far on money. Hi, Christina. Hi, Svetlana. Okay, yes, you're invited, but what are we talking about? And you know, as I looked at the kind of the meta of this big topic, I'm like, what we're really talking about here is the hero's journey of creating our life. That's what we're really talking about when we talk about money. Hi, Dawn. Hi, guys. So, what is a hero's journey? For those of you guys that have never heard of this kind of concept or conversation, I had a page pulled up on Google. Here we go. The hero's journey is widely talked about in some circles, and I have heard of it and kind of poo-pooed it. And the other day I was looking at this and I'm like, because I was like, the thing that I want to create for me and the thing I'm constantly returning to is creating a reality that I'm proud of. And that's been a lot of different realities for me. I want to be proud of the relationship reality that I have, not just like the guy that I'm with, but like who I am in the relationship. I want to be proud of the financial reality that I'm the source of. You know, not just the reality that I can show to you guys and go, hey, I've done this and this, isn't that cool? But like the internals of it. Like I want to be able to look at my bank accounts and like be proud of what I've created. I want to create a physiological reality that I'm proud of. Not just like the body that I can show to you on social media and go, look at me, but like the body that is well from the inside out. For me, that's something I would be proud of, where it's something that I can show you, but also something I can live in and love. And so everything that I create out in the world is coming from this thing of like, create a life, money, and business that you're proud of, that you can both show off and live in with this sense of pride in yourself. So when I looked at that, and I looked at this big, huge conversation of money, from which we can come a lot of different angles, right? We can come at it from like looking at educating yourself about money. We can look at money mindset, which in truth is being money. We can look at, you know, money management. We can look at investing. Like there's a lot, this is a big topic. But when we look at money from something you can be proud of, that's this internal space and energy and choice we make to become the inventor and the creator and the hero of our own story. I want to ask you something. What have you invented yourself as in regards to money? Have you invented yourself as the hero of your own money story? Or if you were going to tell your money story right now, would you be the villain? Now, here's some signs that you're the villain of your own story. You judge yourself about all the choices you're making. When you look at the energy of money, it feels really heavy to you. when you look at your financial situation, you're not looking at it. That's a sign that you're the villain of your story right now. You're avoiding money, right? You defend your choices about money. That's another sign that you are currently the villain in your story. Because if you have to defend something, you secretly believe that you're wrong. What are some other signs that you're the villain? You actually hate yourself in regards to your choices with money. Another sign, you look at your choices with money and dread what you're going to find, right? So dread, avoidance, hatred of yourself. Rejection of yourself, refusal to face what you've created so far. You are currently the villain in your own story. And the thing is, like, we all have a money story, right? Some of us don't get present enough with ourselves to tell ourselves justification. That's another sign that you're the villain in your story. Like, if you're justifying, denying, avoiding, defending, I mean, do you guys recognize yourself? I created myself as the villain in my own story for years. It really wasn't until like 5 years into Access Consciousness, so I was probably 42, 43, that I really got present with all of this. And all it takes to change your money story is to get present. I know it sounds, when you have spent a lot of time avoiding and defending and not getting present, there's usually a backlog, right? There's a backlog of things you haven't taken care of. I know most of us humanoid beings have done a lot of avoiding taxes. We typically we're behind on bills. We're like scraping by. We're doing survival. So when you've spent a lot of years doing that, no matter why you're doing it, by the way, that's not relevant in a story. It's just what it is. Then, typically there's a lot to look at. It's like when the laundry's piled up, which I don't let happen anymore, but I used to when I was a kid, this is really embarrassing, but when I was a kid, I grew up in a family where backlog was like the thing to do. So that was part of it. But I used to let my bedroom get so dirty, like meaning so cluttered, that I had to walk through stuff this high on my bedroom floor. You couldn't even see my floor. And when I look at that now, it's kind of shocking to me that I let my life get that way. And then I look at like who I learned life from, and then it's not as shocking, right? So we all had these different teachers that taught us different things, right? So, okay, cool. Here we are though. And, so at 42, 43, I was facing a lot of backlog. And I was the villain in my story. I was the one that was not handling things, not facing things, not choosing things. I was the one that was choosing overwhelm and sadness and feeling really pathetic and at the effect of myself, the villain in my story, right? I was at the effect of myself. And I would say to someone else, I just don't know where to start. I don't know how to change that. But what was true is I knew what it was going to take and I just wasn't willing. And in my story, I had a bunch of whys I wasn't willing. And so I was kind of stuck in the story, right? Like I was living that story. But it got to a certain point and this is what happens as you keep using these tools, which is why I keep doing money programs. It got to a point where I got tired of my own story. I was like, really, the story's not that interesting anymore. And what I really want is a reality with total peace with money. I kept reading about it. I would hear about it. I would hear people talking. I would be like, total peace with money. What is that? Right? And this is the thing for all of us. We have that person or that thing or that, that whatever on social media or whatever, somebody or something that has piqued our interest enough to kind of pull us go, God, what if I could have a different story? What if I could change my stars? What if? And sometimes that starts as this dream of like, what if someone could come and rescue me, right? Like I remember that. I was like, what if I could marry a rich man and he would come in and pay all my bills? And right, like this was initially how it started, right? The fantasy version of the story. You're still not the hero of your story yet, but you're starting to dream, right? What if this could just magically disappear? The government would take away all my student debt. I mean, it could happen, right? What if? And so it kind of starts there. And then you kind of get the hit that nobody's rushing in to save you. And that's kind of annoying for a minute because like, why not? And then as you sit with all of that and you really let it sink in that you're creating yourself as this thing, this goblin that you don't necessarily want to be, you know, I got to sit with that and go, God, what if I could, here's where I went. If I could be the source of that, because this is what I learned from the How to Become Money workbook, and I have a class on that starting too soon. If I could be the source of that, then can I also be the source of something different? Like if I were going to be the source of something different, if I were going to be the hero in this story instead of the villain, where would I start? What would it be like? And from there, like all these things came rushing in. And this is the thing about this 21-day clearing and asking experiment with money that you're invited to. We ask every day, what's up for you with money? So if I would have asked myself, I would ask myself, what's up? And I'm like, all this energy, we clear it. Right, wrong, good, bad, pod, poc, online, shorts, boys, povids, and beyonds. You can go to theclearingstatement.com to get more info on that. And then we start asking a different question. I started asking myself a different question, like, okay, if I can be the source of all this shit, can I also be the source of something great? And if I were going to be the source of something great, where would I start? So for me, it started out with starting to handle things because there was a lot I wasn't handling. I just wasn't handling it. I was only putting my attention on what it took for my life to kind of keep moving forward in this limping way, but I wasn't putting my attention on like the bricks we were carrying at the back. So I knew, because the bricks had been speaking to me for years, that I needed to put my attention there. And so in that, I had a moment of brilliance. And I want to tell you that in your hero's journey of creating your life, which is what you're in right now, you might be in the dark night of the soul, right? You might be at rock bottom. That's a great place to be. I have been at rock bottom multiple times. You know, like try it on multiple times just to see if you like it. You might be at rock bottom, and that's okay. Because it's simply about acknowledging where you are in the journey and going, okay, we're at ground zero here, people. This is day one. The only place we can die, we can sink ourselves into the ground and die, or we can bounce off the bottom and go, okay, cool. Well, at least I've got something to kick off of. Where can I start? And begin taking that first step. That's the hero's journey right there, just so you know. The hero, starting to create yourself as the hero starts with the recognition that you're at the bottom you're at, even if it's not the fullest of the rock of the bottom. And kicking off that place, going, okay, cool. Well, what's the next step into the future that I want to have? That's it. Now you're a hero. You're starting. You've started creating yourself as the hero. Now, to be fair, you may or may not go in and out of being the villain and the hero for a while. I can easily do villain and hero interchangeably, right? But what I recognize all the time when I start to go to do villain with something is, for me, that's not actually the person I want to create myself as. That's not a path that I want to continue. So this is where the gift of awareness is like priceless, because you can see what you're doing, right? If you can't see what you're doing, you can't make a different choice. So that first step up for me, this is like there's probably been 3 major times I've turned the ship around. So this is the middle ship turn. I stepped up into handling the backlog. For me, that was the most intimidating. It was the most daunting. It was the pile that I had procrastinated on the most, felt the most overwhelmed by. And in that particular moment of brilliance, which is when you get, I got up just enough courage to face the backlog. Now, for some of you, that might be where you start with becoming the hero. For others of you, you may have backlogged on creating forward. Now, I've always kind of been strong at that. I've never really been willing to be homeless or broke, so I don't choose that, so I create forward a lot. For some of you, that might be the backlog, where maybe you've handled it, maybe your money's really organized, but the revenue is flagging, or the amount of choice you have is limited by the limited money you've got coming in based on how you've created your money so far, right? So this is where to be the hero of your story, you might need to focus on or choose into the creation of new revenue. Now that could require, here's the thing about the hero's journey, is it usually requires more of you than you've been willing to contribute so far. In handling backlog, what was required of me was to be brave. Braver than I'd been so far, because I had a lot of judgment about myself that I had to face. I had to face judgment about not having filed, my tax situation was really sorry. And at that point I had 3 different countries that I'd been neglectful in. So it was in a very sad shape. My profit system was non-existent. So I had one bank account that all the money came into, and then I would spend, and then wonder why I didn't have any money at the end of the month. So I had no cash flow system. So that was in sad shape because I was constantly scrambling because I never knew where my money was going. So I had some really potent things to face. And so there was the courage that it required. There was a willingness to learn new things that was really required in handling the backlog, because I had to learn about taxation in 3 different countries, cash flow systems, how that worked with taxation. I had to learn about banking in different countries. There was a learning curve I had to be willing to undertake. And there was a time element that I hadn't been willing to contribute, and an energy element. So there was, in the choosing into becoming the hero of your story, more will be required of you. If you, let's say, are to become the hero of your story required to generate more revenue, there's elements required of you that you haven't been willing to contribute before. Probably the same, actually. Courage, because if you're going to go after finding new people like I do, which is in organic reach content creation, for example, that's the thing that I do, that's the title for it. So you guys all found me via social media for the most part. That's organic content creation. So the algorithm puts you in front of new eyeballs, people share your stuff. If that's, for example, your way, then you've got to have courage to put yourself out there. If you haven't done it before, badly, probably, from your point of view. You've got to have the will, there's a learning curve involved, because you got to learn stuff. I'm in the process right now of learning all kinds of new short form content and SEO and hashtags and all kinds of things, because I'm upping my game with reaching new people. So there's a learning curve involved. Might be 4 things to all things, right? There's the time element, because then you're learning new things, you're putting in time. As you experiment with those things, it takes more time because you're learning and you're playing with stuff that you've never done before. And there's the energy component, right? So this is the thing. So in becoming the hero of your story, there's going to be more required of you. And so the first thing really to look at is, where are you in the mix, right? Are you here? If you Google hero's journey, you're going to find these graphics that show you way too much. I think my hero's journey is much simpler than this, but here's the hero's journey as it's described on Google. You've got the ordinary world. Then you've got the call to adventure. Then you've got the refusal of the call. Then you've got the meeting of the mentor. Then you've got the crossing the first threshold. So there's this just regular person in the ordinary world. Let's extrapolate, shall we? Here's you or me in my ordinary world. My ordinary money world, as it started, was me surviving. That's what I knew. That was my easiest choice. And listen, I've gone in and out of that. Even just 6 months ago, I had to do this journey all over again and regroup and become the hero again, because I had slacked and started becoming the villain in my story again. So this journey is cyclical, and it takes on different forms, but it's the same story. So my ordinary world was I learned survival, and I was easily overwhelmed. I felt like I couldn't figure money out. I didn't feel like I had the courage to face the amount of backlog that I'd created, right? There was this ordinary kind of soup that I had been swimming in for a long time. And I would peek my head out of it for a while and be greater, and then I'd go back into it. But it was pretty much like my baseline, right? This is the ordinary world. And then I would go to an access class and I would feel the call to adventure and I would get inspired. And then I would be kind of back down into my baseline, right? And then for a while, it was like, nah, fuck it, I'm not gonna handle this. So there's that refusal of like, I'm not, like, no, like, fuck it. Anybody relate? The meeting of the mentor, I think, is interesting because this to me is, I think we could talk about this differently because sometimes it's the meeting of a mentor. Like, I'm a mentor, I'm a facilitator, I could be that person, right? This 21-day program could be your mentor thing. But sometimes that is the thing that it takes. However, most of the time that's the catalyst to meeting you. I would say that you are the meeting of the mentor. I would say refusal of the call is usually followed by a demand of yourself. I would say you are the mentor you've been waiting for. Crossing the first threshold is that question of what, no matter what it takes, I'm not living this stupid anymore. I am going to create myself into the hero of my story no matter what it takes. I am going to have something different with money no matter what it takes, okay? Now, what I love about this, I might just redo this as a graphic according to the hero's journey according to Crystal. Tests, allies, enemies come next, the innermost cave, the ordeal, okay? When you do choose to become the hero of your story, you do go through it. Why? Because every single thing that you hadn't been willing to be aware of, every single thing that you hadn't been willing to be, every single thing you haven't been willing to do, because both are required, every single thing you haven't been willing to have comes up. To be faced and chosen beyond. This is why we have clearing. This is why we have asking. This is why we have classes, because shit's gonna come up. Well, after you've chosen to be the hero, shit comes up. Why? Because it's all the shit that you've been doing unconsciously that needs to come up in order for you to choose beyond it. Now you're the hero. Now you get to face things. Reward. Ordeal, reward. But guess what happens when you choose to face the things that you haven't faced before? Let me give you an example. So I told you this is cyclical, right? You go through this in different ways and different phases all the time. So I even recently had this thing where I was living again in my ordinary world. I'd gotten back to kind of that copacetic coasting maintenance thing that's death for humanoids, by the way. So here was my new ordinary world, my new baseline. So I was down here before, and then I got here, and then we were here, but I was still doing baseline. This is the thing, baseline is death. The call to adventure was like, oh, something greater, right? I don't want to have to put out that effort. I don't want to have to choose. Here's the secret about choosing to be the hero. Once you do choose it, there's no effort after that. It's easy. You know what's hard? What always feels effortful is not choosing. Secret tip. Once you choose, it's easy. That's a secret nobody knows. It's like, oh my God, it's going to be so much work. It's weird because there is work, but it doesn't feel like work after you've chosen and made a demand of yourself. So if you want to shortcut it feeling hard, make a demand of yourself. That's where it gets really easy. So here, 6 months ago, whatever, ordinary world, call to adventure, I can't, right? Meeting the mentor, demand of me. And usually for me, meeting the mentor is like rock bottom. I would say this is usually rock bottom. And rock bottom can show up really different for all of us. My new rock bottom was somebody else's like peak. But for me, it was like, oh my God, we absolutely choose or die at this point. That's usually the meeting the mentor part, okay? Rock bottom going, okay, am I gonna choose or am I gonna die? I'm choosing. Threshold crossing, okay? Now, what came up for me in the most recent hero's journey was like, what came up for me to face was that I had been trying to do things in the same way that I was doing before, and they didn't work that way anymore. I was different. I had been doing my system, and really it was across the board, what I just said. My systems, I was trying to do my systems in the same way, but I needed to change them. I was trying to do my team in the same way, but I needed to change them. I was trying to do all this stuff in the same way that it had always worked so far, and none of it was working. So what came up for me to change was everything. My team and my systems, my way of engaging on social media, like everything had to be shaken up. Okay, the ordeal. The ordeal to me is like all the learning curve that goes with that. Because every time you need to face things again and shake them up, there's a learning curve, and that takes time and that takes energy. But what starts to happen as you choose into that is all of this generative energy that comes into your world to like support you. People, ideas, conversations, because you've crossed the first threshold, which is like making that demand of yourself, like whatever it takes, whatever it takes. Willingness is your fuel. The willingness to show up for yourself and be the hero of your own story is your fuel. That's it. So with willingness, everything comes easier. Even if it takes time and takes energy, it doesn't feel hard because you're willing. Unwillingness is the anchor that holds you in the refusal of the call. Unwillingness is death. So if you are there now, one of the questions you can ask to sort of start to break up that concrete that is unwillingness is, what would it take to be willing? What would it take to be willing to make a demand of myself? What would it take to be willing to be the hero in my story? And then it's the reward of that. So this is the thing. So you make a demand and all this stuff comes up and you're facing it and you're like, oh, but the reward of that, because what starts to happen as you engage, because that's what we're really talking about. Unwillingness is our refusal to engage with living, basically. We're basically like, no, I'd rather die. The demand of ourselves and showing up and being the hero is us engaging, going, yeah, okay, I'm here. What's up? We take stock and we get all the information and we start moving pieces around and we start, creating in different directions and getting more information. Now we're engaged. That's what makes everything easy, by the way. And we get the reward of that because things start changing. The thing is, when you start to engage, things start changing. That's the magic of you. That's the magic of you. Once you start engaging, things start changing. And you end up inventing your road into the next future. It's really, if you look at the hero's journey on Google, it's like, it's the road back, the resurrection, you return with the elixir right back to someplace. But the thing about the hero's journey is actually a road that you're paving with your choices into a totally different future that has never existed before. I think that's way more interesting. And the cool thing about the hero's journey is that you can create yourself into a hero in any area of your life, with your finances, with relationship, with your body. You just have to face where you are, look at where you are in the cycle. If you're in unwillingness, ask a question like, what would it take to be willing? Look at what it would take for you to make that demand of yourself and start facing what it is. Let it all come up. Start to create and handle everything. But all of this starts with just, what if you today got present with where you're at? Okay? Now I'm seeing some of your comments, and Suzanne said it's just scary to take the first step. I hesitate. That's cool. That's in the refusal of the call phase. Like, the fear comes when you're refusing. So you just recognize, well, right now I'm just like, I can't even face that. It's going to make me sweat. It's going to make me uncomfortable. There's a learning curve. It's going to take time and energy and uncomfort. I got to be willing to face all the judgments that might not even exist. That's the unwilling phase. That's cool. You just go, okay, cool. Right now, that's where I'm at. So that's the first step of any hero's journey. Where am I at? I'm here. Okay, cool. So I know that in this phase of the journey, I can relax into what it is I'm choosing right now. And I can ask a different question, like, what would it take to be willing? I could even choose a program like 21 Days of Clearing and Asking. It's a big experiment. There's no pressure to get greater. We just show up every day, we clear what's there, and we start asking a new question. I could do that. That's one step I could take. And the link is in the comments above Crystal's video. I could choose that. And that's all that's required, because all you have to do is take that next step. Just take that next step. What's the very next thing you could choose that is what you have courage for in this moment? Is it asking a different question? Is it choosing a program? Is it making one choice? What's that very next step? And in that moment, you become the hero in your story instantaneously. That's all it takes. So I want to encourage you guys in your journey to look at what it would take for you to create yourself into the hero that you need. I have pretty constantly, and there's so many great comments about the program. Your 21 days has been the absolute power-packed contribution. It's a wonderful journey. I recommend it fully. I'm so curious about what these tools will create further. Thank you, ladies, so much. I just want to encourage you to, in this moment for the next minute, what if you didn't make yourself wrong for where you are? What if you allowed yourself to sit with it and look at it and turn it over, kind of put it in front of you and go, what one next thing could I choose that would make me proud of me today? And begin that journey into becoming the hero of your story. Share this with a friend who needs it. And I'll see you guys next week.